Welcome to Peter and Phil's Courageous Conversations, a podcast addressing race relations and social issues in hopes that you'll be inspired to do the same. Now, let's begin our conversation with your hosts, Dr. Peter Weinstein and Dr. Philip Nelson.
Welcome to Courageous Conversation. I'm Dr. Peter Weinstein, and I'm here with my friend, cohort, and golfing buddy.
Hi, I'm Phil Nelson, and we really appreciate the fact that you're taking some time to spend with us and listen to what we have to say, and hopefully we can stimulate some broad thoughts about life and vet med and whatever else we choose to talk about. Peter, I just got back from visiting the golf range with my granddaughter, and it's very gratifying to see her tenacity in trying to learn such a technical sport like golf. But the more I take her and the more I learn about how I learn a lot about myself as I'm trying to get better in golf. When I was working every day, I measured my addiction to golf by making sure that I didn't get any better than bogey golf. If I told myself that if I played better than bogey golf, I was spending too much time on the golf course and not enough time at work. But now that I have the time to develop myself, to develop my golfing skills, I'm slowly losing strength and coordination because of age. So it just doesn't match all the time. You know, how's your golf game?
Well, the once a year, if that I play, points out all my handicaps. It points out my lack of patience. It points out the fact that if you don't practice, it's really hard to be good. But when you want to be good and you don't practice, it doesn't just come naturally. Unlike you, where you were happy to play bogey golf, my goal was to shoot my weight. I, generally speaking, if I'm lucky, I play once a year, go and visit with some friends, and then we go out and play golf. And I'm too competitive in a sport that I don't play well in. And so it's a bit frustrating. It was funny that you were talking about playing your golf game during working, and that you were worried about playing bogey golf. But part of your role as the dean in many cases was a business role, and golf was part of your business game, wasn't it? I mean, you're out there with potential donors going through a process that used to be a 2-martini lunch, but now is an 18-hole golf. And so how many times did you let somebody win so maybe they give you more money?
Well, you presume that I just told you I played bogey golf, so I didn't have to let many people win. As a matter of fact, I'm as competitive as you, but golf teaches a lot of life lessons. I was watching one of the Masters turn, and the year I was watching, the person who won, the commentators were telling a story that he had shared about his childhood and his training in golf, and how his father took him out to the golf course and bought him buckets of balls so he could practice. And one day he went out and he was hitting balls and he wasn't doing well. And when he got down to the last ball of the bucket, he told his dad, "I need another bucket because I still can't hit this shot." And his dad looked at him and said, "Son, I need you to pretend that you're playing the Masters. You're on the 18th hole and you are about to approach the green, and this is the last shot to make par. Hit this ball as if you're saving par." And there were so many lessons in that exchange. You know, one was every ball you hit costs something, not just your energy. I had to pay for these balls, you know, and you don't get better just through simple repetition. You get better through thoughtful intention, you know, and too often we try to create habits by just repeating and repeating. But one of the things I had to tell my granddaughter this morning was the last thing you want to do is practice the wrong way. You know, you can go to the range and as often as you want. But if all you do is keep hitting it the same way and keep shanking the ball or fading the ball because you're hitting it wrong, and you change nothing, thinking that sooner or later you'll figure it out naturally, that doesn't work. And those lessons can be applied to life as well, to veterinary medicine, to, I played varsity tennis, and I knew how much it took to excel at that level. I had to hit a lot of tennis balls in order to be able to play at the level that I needed to represent a school or a college on the tennis court. I'm amazed at the difference between the tennis industry and the golf industry, because, they have it all wrapped up so that, even daylight saving times I'm told, was developed so that you could spend more time on the golf course.
Well, I think this life as a golf as a life metaphor is really quite interesting. So on a golf course, you're out there in the tee box, whichever you play, the tough ones or the easy tees. For those of you who don't know, who don't play golf, basically they have tees that are set up for those people like myself who are once-a-year golfers, and they have tees set up that are further back for those like Phil who are more professional. But you look out over this green area with trees. And then you look out and there's water and there's sand and then there's longer grass. And Phil, what do they call these areas of water and sand and longer grass? I mean, there's a term in golf, hazards. Right?
Yes.
It's exactly right. So it's like looking out over life and it looks beautiful, but in front of you is either a clear path or hazards. Now, you were talking about your teenage granddaughter who's playing golf with you, who's also driving. And the goal in driving, as in the goal in life, as in the goal in golf, is to avoid the hazards. But it's also your ability to handle those hazards, should you end up in the rough, the sand trap, or the water, that ultimately allows you to be successful. So there is this life metaphor of looking out at a beautiful scene and wanting to appreciate the scene, but also constantly thinking about how do I avoid the hazards that are out there.
Yeah. Sometimes you can't see the hazards, right? You may have to anticipate the hazards. Sometimes you find yourself going around a blind corner, and and if it's the first time on this particular course or this particular path, you're not sure what's around the corner. And that's when experience helps, as well as intuition, in order for you to try to predict what might be around that corner. But if you're so concerned about it, then you might actually hit a shorter shot to the place where you can see around the corner. And that occurs in life. And that's an approach you can take in life as well. If you don't know what's going to happen 10 years from now, then you plan for what you do know is going to happen 3 years from now. And you prepare and you reach a goal so that you can achieve that 10-year goal with greater certainty by establishing a 3-year point on the path you want. So yes, there are a lot of life similarities in sports in general, but in golf, since we're using it as a metaphor for life.
The other interesting thing is there's a lot of veterinary medicine in golf.
Well, there's a lot of business in golf. I recently had some lab tests done because of my annual checkup, and I received a bill for part of those lab tests, and because my insurance company didn't cover it all, and I was surprised at what they wouldn't cover. And I looked at the details of the bill, and it turned out that I had a urinalysis done, and it was a manual inspection, a manual urinalysis. Well, a manual urinalysis doesn't tell me how much bilinogen might be in my urine. It does. I had no clinical signs of urinary disease. And I didn't understand why they had a manual inspection of the urine until I saw that they charged $85 for it. Now, if they'd done a chem strip, it would have given me a lot more information about whether there was blood or hemoglobin in my urine or not that you can't see. I think it would have been much more revealing, but that may have only cost $10. And I don't blame my insurance company for not covering it. I'm still going to, and I may end up paying for it, but I'm going to be but I'm going to be more aware the next time I go to this particular this particular lab about what tests I want them to do and what tests and how I want them to do it. And it is um, a, 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 a signal for me on how healthcare can be easily, how healthcare costs can multiply so rapidly when you are using techniques like we used in a restaurant. Essentially, restaurateurs make more money on iced tea than they do on the main entree. And that, if they charge you $7, $8 for a glass of tea and you get all the refills you want, you can't drink enough to make for it to cost them $7, $8. And so it's once again, I reached I reached the blinds. I hit a ball and went through a blind spot and got surprised as to where I landed. Now I know how this golf course plays.
Let me extend that metaphor. Okay. When it comes down to golf and we're on the course, based upon what we see in front of us, we got to go into our bag of 13 clubs. I think that's the maximum you're allowed to carry, something like that.
Yeah.
And you have to choose a club that will give you the best outcome, whether you're going to lay up or whether you're going to try to drive over the water or around. And choosing the right club is kind of like choosing the right lab tests with a patient to ensure that you get the information that you need to be able to make the next shot or make the next treatment plan. And so in veterinary medicine, we're playing golf with the patient essentially by choosing the right club or the right lab test. And in your case, the lab chose the wrong club for you. It's like your caddy, me, saying, Phil, play the 5-iron. And you say, well, I really need the 3. You play the 5, and it's like, well, I really didn't need this. And so we've got a metaphor there too in making sure that we choose the right club to get the outcome that we need. And apparently the manual urinalysis assessment wasn't the club that you needed for that period of time.
Well, I'm not even sure I needed it at all. In this particular case, I'm not sure I needed to hit the ball in the direction they wanted me to hit. They were trying to hit the ball in. It was a scan of my condition, and that was fine. It was just that the technique that they used was inappropriate for the outcome. It also brought up another issue, and I'm going to move away from the analogy for just a second here because I don't want to overdo it and tie us up into knots. Or maybe I will keep it. But in human medicine, at least, there's a joke about, there's a veterinary joke about how two patients walk into their healthcare provider's office to get treated. And in both cases, the healthcare provider decides that the patient needs radiographs. And in one office, the patient is referred to a radiologist, and the radiograph is taken about 2 weeks later. And then when it's read, the patient is referred to a surgeon, and the surgery is done a month after that. In the other office, the patient needs a radiograph, and it's taken in the office. And then it's determined that that patient needs surgery, and surgery is done the next day. The first patient is a human being. The second patient is a dog. And in human medicine, and that is supposed to expose one of the reasons healthcare is so expensive, as well as not as efficient as it might be in veterinary medicine. The healthcare provider in human medicine has almost become the caddy, and everything else that happens to the patient occurs outside of the medical office. And my latest experience with my doctor was, have you had a colonoscopy yet? I need to refer you to this. We need to check your heart. Let's get a PET scan. I need to refer you to a cardiologist. Let's pull some blood, and I'm going to refer you to a lab. And what happens then is there is a voltage drop in communication. You go to the lab, and the lab just runs the tests. And they have menus on how to make money with their tests, how to maintain a profit margin with their tests. And what's lost is the need of the patient. And I can't help but feel like like the pawn when I realized that the method used to examine my urine was largely selected because of the profit margin for that method rather than the insight that the method might provide. And that is a lesson in and of itself for us as veterinarians. We should not lose sight of the value of our diagnostic procedures for the patient.
It's an interesting metaphor. So are you the golf ball or the club?
I have no idea. No, I'm the golfer, and I'm paying for every step of the way.
So
I'm not the golf ball or the club. I'm the golfer, and I have to pay for the clubs, and I have to pay for the ball, and I have to pay for the lessons.
So
I have to pay for the treatment to correct my swing.
from a profit margin standpoint, let's just go back to that profit margin that you talked about. You buy a club and it will last how long in your hands before you throw it into the water or break it? I mean, excuse me, how long will an average golf club last?
Well, I have no idea because I'm not an average golfer.
Right.
I'm not even a good golfer. But because I have clubs that I have clubs that I've owned for more than 35 years. The only reason people replace clubs is because they tend to get better. The club doesn't necessarily wear out unless you're a horrible golfer or unusually impatient.
Well, yeah. So let's just use that. If you buy a golf club and it lasts 10 years and it costs you $200, the seller of that club makes it one time over 10 years. On the other hand, the people who make golf balls know you're going to lose golf balls. You're going to hit them into the water. You're going to lose them out in the forest. And you can only play maybe one round if you can actually keep the golf balls. So the number of golf balls that you will buy in that same 10-year period might actually add up to a higher profit margin for the golf ball company than for the golf club company. Does that make sense?
Not necessarily, because avid golfers tend to change clubs for different reasons. But I'm interested in the point you're trying to make. What's your point?
Well, my point is that the things that are disposables, like lab testing, like cartridges for printers, etc., tend to actually make more money than the equipment themselves.
Well, that may be, but I think we're getting off.
We are, but that's what I do all the time. So
off
just
track
bear
here.
with me.
I'm not interested in. First of all, profits are not unholy. I'm not trying. I want to make sure I'm clear about this. What I'm concerned about is the divorce between profit margin and the ethos of healing. A
Well,
divorce between the test and the patient.
Well, we've lost that in many ways, and private equity hasn't helped from that.
I don't. Again, I'm talking about human medicine right now. I'm feeling.
I am too.
I'm feeling jaded as a patient, but then that makes it easy for me now to transfer that to veterinary medicine. And if we haven't gotten there yet, then we need to learn from our own experiences in order to. And how do we protect our industry from falling into that trap? Because when I was in practice during my early part of my career, we did a lot of our tests in-house. Now we mail our samples out. And however, I still think that we have maintained a closer relationship with our patients and our clients in veterinary medicine than we do in human medicine, that occurs in human medicine. I may be wrong, but I am concerned about protecting that and making sure that we understand what's around the blind curve, the blind fairway in medicine.
All right, so let's move on to another thought.
You got bored with me, huh?
No, I just had some other things that came to mind, and we've got a limited amount of time before we have to get off the course.
Well, if you would stay on the fairway, we would make it.
I know, but there are people coming up behind us who can hit the ball a lot further than I can. In golf and in life, what is the most important shot?
Well, in golf, the most prominent shots, the most important shots are the short shots.
Right.
The shots getting on the green and putting is where you make your money.
Correct. Now, when you're playing golf and you're at the tee and it's a par 5, means that they expect you to be able to complete the hole in 5 shots. And you hit your drive. What is the most important shot after the drive?
I just told you.
Well, what I'm getting to is the next shot.
Yeah, okay.
Because we as people, if you hit that drive into the woods, where does your head automatically go? About
My head,
how bad
my
your
head,
drive was, right?
my head goes to the bar.
But as a human being, you're angry, you're frustrated, you're upset. And as a result of having that first bad shot, doesn't it impact your next shot?
You got to start asking better questions. Yeah.
I'm a bit obtuse, but that's my point. My point is, as in life, we walk out of an exam room with a difficult client, and doesn't it impact our next exam room?
Of
And
course.
in golf, if we hit the ball into the water or into the sand, the minute you try to go and hit that next shot, you have to put that bad experience behind you, don't you?
No, you have to create a strategy to get out of that bad experience. You don't necessarily, you can't put it behind you. You're in it. You don't put it behind you until you're behind it, until it's behind you. Still
But
got to
isn't
get out. You still have to get out of the rough,
right?
right? So that bad client still has to be dealt with. What you have to do though is, like you said, sometimes you lay up, right? And what you do with, you might put that bad client in a parking space or you should put that bad client in a parking space when you go to your next client, rather than take it with you, right? As long as we're going to continue this analogy. Next time, give me a warning when you're going to make this kind of left turn.
Or
Thank you.
all right, as we come to a close of our 18 holes, boy, I think I've bogeyed every one, maybe a couple of double bogeys. Life in golf. How much of your success in golf is mental and how much is it physical? You have 100% to work with. How much of your success in golf is mental? What percentage is mental? What percentage physical?
You need to ask a pro that, not, because frankly, for me, when I play golf, I play golf for mental relaxation.
Really?
Yes. Meaning I'm not thinking about the things I normally think about on a daily basis. And so even though I may dabble in the strategy of golf, for me, it's only 15 to 20%. For pro golfers, it may be as much as 40. For me, 80% of the game is physical. It's technical. Now, what's your point again?
Well, my point is that a lot of our success is mental. And I think a lot of what happens on the golf course, good, bad, and ugly, is derived from our mindset based upon our prior shot. If I hit a ball straight down the fairway and I can see the green from where I'm standing for my next shot, I'm much more optimistic about the outcome for that hole. On the other hand, if I hit the ball into the rough, and I'm going to try to figure out how to play my next shot, it does impact me mentally and then will ultimately impact the entire hole, which could then carry over to the next hole. So what I'm suggesting is golf and life have a lot of metaphors in the sense that we tend to carry over from shot to shot and hole to hole many of our bad experiences, whereas the best thing we could do is prepare for the next shot and prepare for the long haul and not be dwelling on those things. Learn from those things in the past, but don't dwell on them. And I think it's natural, and we see it even in pros, that after having a bad hole, how difficult is it mentally? Because you practice so much. How difficult is it mentally to get yourself back on track when you've got a par 5 or a par 3 or whatever it is staring you down and you just had a bogey?
That was such a mixed metaphor that I'm afraid to tackle it. But you are right about the mental aspect. Success in any area is largely mental, is largely based on mental preparation. Success in education, success in veterinary practice, success in golf is, most pros, when they approach the tee box and it's a par 4, 370-yard hole, you divide that by 3, and you know how many yards you have to cover in order to make a birdie, so that you have to be on the green in 2 with a chance to putt for birdie, so 370 yards, divided by half, your driver has to cover at least half of that. And then hopefully you have a club that will cover the other half, or your driver covers much more than half of that, which means you can use a more accurate club. That's part of the strategy, right? So you make a plan and you decide, I hit my driver 250 yards. I wish. But let's say I hit my driver 250 yards and on average. But this time I end up in the rough. Now, I beg to differ that now what I have to do is put it behind me. If I put it behind me, I'm still in the rough. I can't put it behind me. The question is, how do I deal with the unexpected? And now I have to have the resilience to say, oops, that didn't work. And now I'm over here instead of over there. Do I still need to be over there, or can I get further down the path I want to get by taking another strategic line? And that's how you put it behind you. You can't simply forget it. You have to deal with it.
All right, so let's bring this home with veterinary golf metaphors. There are at least 4 terms I can think of off the top of my head that have veterinary relationships to golf. Some of them have to do with scoring, and some of them have to do with the layout of the course. Here's your quiz, Phil. Give me 4 animal-related golf terms that are commonly used around the golf course.
You know, you've had time to create a quiz without even giving me a lecture. So why don't you go ahead and give it to me and don't make me sweat. Good.
Eagle, albatross.
Good.
You ever get an albatross?
No, I rarely get birdies. So why would I have?
Okay. Now you were talking about the layout of a course. And when the course is laid out where there's a turn on the course where it goes to one side or the other, what is it commonly called? Blank right, blank left. Dogleg left, dogleg right.
Right. Correct.
Veterinary medicine and golf. Who'd have thunk we'd been able to do a podcast on that? I'm not sure whether we hit a bogey. By the way, a buzzard is 2 over par. It's an old long-term term that we haven't gotten to. Vet medicine and golf. We just did a podcast on it. We challenge anybody else out there who's doing podcasts to beat this one up. Hey, Phil, was it a bogey, a birdie, or just did we hit par today?
I think we just laid an egg myself.
Well, some of our listeners will appreciate our ability to make fun of ourselves while concurrently making fun of a passion that so many veterinarians have and how it really does apply to life on a day-to-day basis. We're going to play best ball, and I'm going to give you the putt.
Well, I think we just made an attempt to try to tie a sport that's difficult to learn, difficult to master. Mark Twain once said that golf is a perfect way to ruin a hike. And I think we just proved that. It's also a perfect way. I think it's also a perfect way to ruin a metaphor. But there are lessons in sports and in golf that we can apply to life. There are lessons in golf that we can apply to veterinary medicine. The bottom line is, whatever we decide to do, it requires preparation. And we cannot ignore the impact of mental preparation as well as the technical preparation in order to have success. Planning is important. Skill is just as important.
Are you saying we should be better prepared for our podcasts?
I don't think we could have prepared for this one. I was startled by some of the dogleg lefts you took in this discussion, but I had fun. Thanks a lot for indulging. Thanks to our listeners and to Nicole. I don't know how you're going to make this any better, but please do your stuff.
All right. Until next time, we're going to go out on the course and practice.
Thank you for joining us for another courageous conversation. Be sure to follow us and check back next week for more.